You want to put a pause on all immigration? Am I reading this right?
Yeah, so the legislation that I filed today with a significant number of co-sponsors in the House would pause, yes, and that's the name of the bill. The acronym is PAUSE, P-A-U-S-E. It would pause immigration with the exception of short-term tourist visas, so people
Okay.
can still come visit the country. While we fix the broken legal immigration system, as well as some of the magnets for illegal immigration. So, for example, you mentioned H-1Bs. We need to overhaul or change or get rid of that entire program. We need to fix it. It is badly broken. The diversity visas and chain migration that have been badly abused, particularly by people who are adherent to Sharia law, who want to Islamify our country, who've been bringing over cousins and sisters and brothers and abusing diversity visas and chain migration, that needs to be ended, just entirely ended. But also the magnets for illegal immigration, things like birthright citizenship, which the president rightfully issued an executive order to correct. We need permanent change to say that you're only a citizen of a citizen parent, not just because you happen to cross the Rio Grande for 5 minutes. And then finally, one issue that doesn't get enough scrutiny is Plyler v. Doe, the Texas case that said that we must educate illegal alien children. It's a 1982 or 3 case. It's 40 years old. We need to change that. We need to challenge that law. We need Congress to step in and fix it, because that's another magnet in addition to the health care benefits and other issues, which, by the way, credit to the Secretary of Treasury today. They're taking giant steps to go after and stop the flow of tax benefits to illegal aliens. And the last point I'll make is the adherence to Sharia law. I also put in the bill that we need to put in provisions for vetting people for Sharia law. And if you get these reforms in place, well, then maybe we'll believe in our immigration system again.
Yeah.
Maybe we can then say we're okay with a guest worker program or something to bring people in. But we need American workers to get American jobs. We need to stop dumping so many people into our country. We have 51 million foreign-born people in our country. That's 16 to 17% of our population. That's more than it's ever been. Let's just pause. This is not a radical notion, by the way. We did that in the 1920s after the big explosion of immigration. And back then, we were better in terms of assimilation. Today, our education, our schools are not helping people assimilate. They're not teaching that America is great. They're not teaching that our Constitution is strong and that it should be followed, or teaching biblical principles. So we don't have a good, strong assimilation education program today. So let's pause. Let's reassert, make sure that our country is going to become an actual melting pot rather than bringing people in here who want to undermine Western civilization and America.
There's a lot there. It's Chip Roy, District 21 Republican, great state of Texas, running now for Attorney General of the great state of Texas. How's that going, by the way? I know that you're in your office. You can't talk about that much, but people should go to what? ChipRoy.com if they want to find out more about that?
Yeah, ChipRoy.com. You can follow me on Twitter at ChipRoyTX. And I can generally state you're correct. I'm here, so I'm not going to campaign. But things are going well. Great reception. Polls look good and all that. But I'll just leave it at that and talk about that when I'm not on federal property.
Very good. Let's talk about some of what you just threw out there. Birthright citizenship. That's got to be something that's examined very closely. Obviously, Senator Howard, when he added in subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meant that if you're somebody who has their loyalties to another country, you don't get to be to drop a baby in this country and then that baby's a citizen. That doesn't make any sense. There's no other reason I can think of for why that clause was added in the beginning of the 14th Amendment. So that should be a simple one. It's going to be probably riots in the streets if it goes the right way, but that should be a simple one. Chain migration is interesting to me because people don't seem to understand it. So if you come across the border in Laredo, have a baby in an American hospital, that baby is now an American citizen, and that baby's grandparents and uncles and aunts and cousins and siblings born abroad can now all be brought in on a chain, right?
Yeah, and also when you talk about the people who come here on visas, whether they're H-1B visas or other visas, maybe they're student visa, and then they stay, and then they get a job or whatever, and then they're also able to bring someone in, or they get married, and then they're able to bring in other family members, or
right.
Parents, or aunts, or uncles, or cousins, and that domino effect has led to a massive explosion. And you wonder why. So why do we have these massive enclaves of Somalis? Or you've got Ilhan Omar up there talking about her president, right? But we're not talking about the United States, right?
Right.
Talking about their home country. That's what I'm getting at here. Like, look, I remember reading stories. I'm a big baseball fan. Lou Gehrig, right? Famous
Yes.
baseball player in the 20s and 30s of the New York Yankees, obviously famously died of ALS, which was known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Well,
Right.
he played in, 2,130 consecutive games. Great guy. You read the history. His parents, German, were like, Lou, you're going to go to school. You're going to learn English. You're going to become American. Like, they were adamant about that. And almost all of the immigrants who came here were so proud to be an American and then want to become and assimilate and adopt the ways of being an American, that it was central to the ethos of immigrants seeking to come here.
Yes.
And I just think we've got to remember that. We got to make sure we reinstill it and stop bringing people in here who have no desire to adhere to our Judeo-Christian values, our Constitution, free market capitalism, freedom, limited government, and we need to pause immigration until we get that sorted out.
Interestingly, my grandfather came from Bari, Italy in 1928, and he didn't teach his 8 kids Italian. My father didn't speak a word of Italian. Well, he knew the dirty words. That was about it. This was right. This is about coming here. And I said, Grandpa, why don't you teach your kids Italian? He said, because I want them to be Americans. I don't want them to be Italians. I mean, there was no reason for it. So what you say is true, and this has changed so much over the years. But I've got to ask you about why you guys don't, in Congress, do one simple move to make being in this country, overstaying a visa, a crime. It is a crime to come across the border, 8 U.S.C. 1325, illegally. It's a crime to come back across the border once you've been deported. It's a felony. It's 8 U.S.C. 1326. But if you overstay a visa, it's a civil offense.
Right.
Now, getting a speeding ticket is a civil offense too. If I don't pay the fine, I can go to jail. But the left is using that to say it's not a crime. Not a crime. It's civil. Why does Chip Roy hate these people? Can't you guys just make that a crime? Why isn't it?
Yeah, no, we've got legislation to do that. I mean, it's just one of those things we got to move, just like H.R. 2 in the last Congress, where we had significant security measures and fixes to asylum and parole. By the way, we need to do all of that. We need to codify that stuff that President Trump is actually adhering to. We need to codify it so you don't have a future Biden-Mayorkas administration that abuses it. But visa overstays are a huge problem. In fact, a bigger problem than people coming across the border.
Yes.
And remember that it was visa overstays who were the 9/11 hijackers, right? Those were people that came that way. They didn't come across the Rio Grande. So both are problems, but you are absolutely right. We need to step up those penalties. Frankly, just literally being the overstay, coming here at all illegally, those should all be crimes that are prosecutable, not just civil offenses. They need to be stiffer. And frankly, like I said, let's just pause immigration until we fix all of this.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Chip Roy, Trendy Aragua here in San Antonio, Chip. You had an underground club, 150, 160 people arrested. Allegations from Tricia McLaughlin from DHS that there were underage girls that were involved in this. It's happening right here next door. She says they found other underground, businesses. And by underground, it's off the books. It's you've got a bunch of people in a place that they shouldn't be. They don't have a proper CO. You've got gang members that are there. She said there were some in Iowa that they're popping up all over the place. What do you do about this? And did you realize that it was going to be this close to home?
Yeah, well, in fact, I got to admit that it was a lot closer to home for me when we had a bust just this summer up in Hayes County. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah.
That literally happened. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you how close it was to my house, but it was close, right in the neighborhood. And there was I think in that bus, there was, 30 or 40 TDA members that were from all over the country, some of their leaders that had basically Airbnb'd a house. So that was right there, in suburban Austin. Well, now in San Antonio, I knew that some of this stuff that they were looking into a lot of these operations. I've had some great conversations with our task force down there in terms of how they work together in terms of the local and federal authorities all in one, unit down there. They're doing a lot of great work. And look, I cannot state enough. Remember a year ago and 2 years ago, Joe, I'd come on your show and we were talking about the horrors of what was happening, the people coming across the border, what the gangs were doing, Lake and Riley, Jocelyn Nungare, all of these things that were happening. And, now we've got an administration that's stopping it. Like, we have got to applaud the president, remind people this is what security looks like. We're getting rid of violent criminals who are engaged in human trafficking, who are moving fentanyl into your communities, who are tied to gangs, tied to cartels. We're going after the cartels, whether they're Venezuelan or Mexican. We're changing the game in the Western Hemisphere. This takes time. We're 9 months in. Like, we're absolutely winning in so many different levels, and we've got to be very optimistic in talking about that. Yes, there's crap I want to do here. Yes, I hit my head against the wall for 60 votes in the Senate, but we keep fighting here, introducing bills, moving the Overton window, the whole conversation. Remember that I introduced a bill to designate cartels as terrorists. The president signed that executive order this last January. I introduced a bill 5 years ago to get us out of the World Health Organization. The president signed that earlier this year. Now you've got ICE because we funded it. Remember the big, beautiful bill?
Yeah.
That was passed by this Congress, $150 billion in that bill to help with the border security efforts, including ICE funding, so we can hire the people and have the right people on the ground doing it. So all this stuff takes time, and we're moving the needle. Not as fast as you or I would want, but we're moving the needle, and the president's doing a good job on that stuff.
Hey, if you're new here, make sure you come back. We've got a lot more to tell you. They don't want you to know. I'll bring it to you. Don't miss a second of it, and don't miss the next one for sure. Come on.